Following on from the last video, here are the Spanker gaffs, and what we're doing is really doing the transition from the pole down to the gaff jaw. You don't have to be too concerned if you have a little imperfections here, because you're going to be painting it white, so if you need, you can fill it. But the truth is, this has to come down quite a bit more. The other little thing that we have to remember is that the inside of the gaff jaw, it's tapered so that when it fits on the mast, remember this has to sit at an angle. So you have to taper this on all of the gaff joints, including the Spanker boom, that it'll sit like that. And following on from the instruction, we need to put a series of pins. We can use brass pins on both sides, or you can actually, since you're going to paint it, you could just put a drop of CA, which will simulate a bolt head. Now that the units are all complete, it's time to put all the fittings on. And the first thing you'll notice is that there are a series of lines we've drawn. This is the Spanker main boom, and there's a line right across the bottom and across each side, and if you wanted, you could also put one on the back, but you really only have 2 holes to drill. These would be 2 sheave holes. I'm using the Green Heart cleats. We're painting this whole thing white, so it really doesn't matter. But the key is that these things all line up perfectly with each other, because it will be very visible, and that they line up on a straight line, whether it's on the bottom or on the side. And the same thing goes for the Spanker gaff, for the fore and the main. Again, you want them to line up perfectly. We've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the color scheme would be. We've looked at the paintings, all the references we have, and the truth is, it's as clear as mud. We've made a decision that we're going to paint the boom, the Spanker gaffs, and I haven't decided yet, but probably this area here in white and leave all the rest natural. And here they are painted with their first coat on, and looking pretty good. And to do that, for the natural finishes, we've been using wipe-on poly. So we're going to build up 4 or 5 coats. We put the first one on, lightly sanded it, and this really is a easy finish to apply. One of the challenges with using rub-on poly is keeping it off your hands, and these extra large gloves allow me to use them a few times. Just painting the midsection of the mast. During the makeup of this video, I looked at Tom Laurier's video on how to make blocks, and of course came across his dissertation on making sheave holes or sheave blocks. So instead of a simple hole, I simulated the sheave block on the Spanker boom. And the same thing was done on the top gallant. We've come across a timing issue with the Spanker rings. As you can see, when we put the bibs on, they can't pass. So we should have put the rings on before we built up the top of the main mast. So what I've had to do is to bend them, put them over. It was not a big issue, but again a timing issue that we need to be careful of. Of course, there's no such issue with the front mast. We're also using some, to make up the various pieces that fit on top the mast, we are using some brass pipe that I have in all sorts of various sizes that will make up these caps. There's one here and there's one in the bow and a few of them. So I have all sorts of different sizes that will solve the problem for these brass pieces. We have to make up these brass rings. There's one on the bowsprit and two on the forward mast. One at the top, which would have a single stay line that goes through the sheave in the bowsprit, and the other one has a ring on both sides. We've made these pieces by cutting out tube and soldering rings onto the tube and then putting them on, and I've stuck them with thick Sheave. As most of you know with my videos, that when I screw up, I let you know that I've screwed up and what I've done to fix it. And so I've been making the main sail, and here we have it. And I've been following the instruction, and where we put the ring, Spanker boom ring that's on the mast, I put it literally 10 millimeters too high, based on a measurement that I got off the plan, but clearly it was wrong. And so I only found this out when I went and made the sail up and put it on the sail and found that the sail was too long. Double checked the sail to find I had made it according to the plan, but I had to move this ring down. This is the scratch built one, literally a full centimeter or 10 millimeters. So that meant I had to take off all of the rigging to get this ring off, which I've done. Now sanding it down, and I'll make up a new ring to put on it. And if there's a lesson learned, always a lesson learned, it's to really, if you're going to rig it with sails, that you need to really double check the measurements, because the sails have to fit in a very specific space, and only when you get the sail done would you have found it. Now I could have simply made the sail smaller, but that would be cheating, so the correct thing is to come back on the mast and correct the error that we made. And now we're filling in all the little bits and pieces that I hadn't covered before. For instance, the cat davits in the front, the rat lines, bland and then painted, and this tying the rope to hold them in place. And the same thing for the lights on the forward stay. This really struggled, and again these were tied with lines. The various halyards that come down, making sure everything works and that there's lots of extra line. And then the horse holes that I don't know why I left this so late, but anyway. You can see from all the string hanging off the model that the rigging has started. We're not going to go through the making of blocks in any great detail, but we will show you all the rigging points on the boat. There are lots of comments about the quality of the blocks supplied with kits, and I have to say the blocks on this kit were not too bad. The large blocks are 11 to 12 inches long, which is 30 centimeters, and the small ones are 8 inches long, or approximately 20 centimeters. The lines we don't think were supplied are absolutely accurate in terms of size and perhaps even in color. At the time, the shroud lines should have been black, and they've supplied brown shroud lines. So we've used a mix or two, but we are going back to black shrouds for the model. If you look, the line is attached at the back of the spanker gaff into a 3-hole block, then down to a 1-hole block, back to the 3-hole, down to another 1-hole block, back to the 3-hole, and then down to the deck. and there's one little line right by the jaw, and that one starts at a one hole block, goes down to another one hole block, back through the hole and down. The forward spanker gaff follows exactly the same rigging, a 3-hole block here, a series of 1-hole blocks, and back down to the deck. The shrouds are attached to the main mast. We've whipped them with some black thread, and then of course they go all the way down and attach to the dead eyes. While we're waiting on the spanker boom base ring down here to dry, then we'll have to sand and clean up and put the poly back on, and then we'll re-rig. And so we're going to bring this video to an end and start you off with cleaning up all the rigging and start to look at making sails, which for me is going to be a first time, so I'm quite sure it's not going to go according to plan. So see you in the next video.